Well, a boy's best friend is his mother.
Kill her, Mommy. Kill her.
We'll tear your soul apart.
Live or die. Make your choice.
What are you waiting for, huh? What are you waiting for?
I'm not even gonna swat that fly. I hope they are watching. They'll see. They'll see and they'll know. And they'll say, why, she wouldn't even harm a fly.
They're here.
I met this 6-year-old child with this blank, pale, emotionless face, the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes. I spent 8 years trying to reach him, and then another 7 trying to keep him locked up because I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil.
Rise and shine.
Two men trapped where no one can find them, with a choice no one should have to make.
He doesn't want us to cut through our chains. He wants us to cut through.
Now,
What the hell is this?
one detective
I see you.
on the trail of a madman is their only hope.
Live or die. Make your choice.
USA Today calls Saw a true stroke of genius. Saw. Rated R.
All right, hello, and welcome to another episode of Back to the Blockbuster with your host, KS and Jackson. But in place of Jackson, we have our boy Mark again from the Release Date Rewind podcast, helping me out with a second episode today. That means that you really are a friend of the show when you're willing to do 2 episodes in one day.
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm so ready. Bring on the horror.
The one before this, we were talking about House on the Haunted Hill from 1999, and that turned 25. And now we're talking about Saw, which turns 20 in right, they said the same date, right? The day came out 5 years
Isn't that
apart.
wild?
Same day.
October 29th,
Yeah.
2004, and then the other one was 29th of 99. Yep.
We were eating pretty well as horror fans in October of 2004 because The
Yeah.
Grudge came out like a week before this or 2 weeks before, somewhere around there.
Right. It was a big
so-
time. 2004,
Yeah.
90, we were just saying 99 was obviously a huge year. Everyone knows that. Lots of hits and really amazing films. But 2004, we forget, like, there were some major movies. Mean Girls, obviously Saw. Like, I just feel like we had like some big memorable movies of that time. There was some crap, but there was some good stuff,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, like any year, there'll be some crap and some good stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Um, but this movie caught me completely by surprise. I don't know if it did when you first saw it. I wasn't expecting much, if anything at all. I thought it was just going to be like a fairly entertaining horror movie, and that would be
Yeah.
it. I saw this in theaters on opening night with my friends,
Mhm.
and like it was interesting because like through most of it, I was like, oh, like the first time I saw it, I was like, it feels like it's trying to be like 7 or something like that, and like
Mhm.
that almost took me out.
I
of it,
was
right?
thinking that rewatching it. I'm like,
Um,
okay, yeah, this is definitely giving the 7 vibes for sure.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But then we got to that ending, and and I
Oh
was
my
actually
God.
like completely gobsmacked by it. Where I was like,
I mean, we were screaming throughout the whole movie,
Yeah.
but that ending with that music that is now the franchise theme song, dun dun dun,
yeah,
dun dun dun, da, 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 like very like operatic, like so
Yeah.
dramatic. But wow, we were screaming. I was 17, senior in high school. Yep, Halloween weekend. I'm pretty sure I saw this either right before going to a friend's Halloween party or the night before. So it was just like horror weekend. But yeah, Gaius, this was truly a shock. It was
Yeah.
truly like, what the hell are we watching? This is you kind of felt like this was a new horror classic, you know?
Yeah, right. And like, and when you see the ending, because I saw this twice in theaters because of that, I was like, well,
Nice.
I have to watch this again to see like does this all make sense or like whatever, like just picking it apart a little bit more because like
Right.
and not thinking it was like I was just trying to be a 7 clone or whatever. Like watching it with that perspective after seeing the ending was a lot better because it really does work really well and flow really well,
What a
and
script.
it earns that ending. I mean, I don't know if people try to say now that like they knew the whole time the dude lying on the floor is something was going to be up with that. I didn't. I kind of
I'm sure people will
I
say that.
was
I had no idea. Are you kidding? I mean, that no, the only thing, and I do remember our first thought was, but wait, wouldn't they have been able to tell him like he was breathing? And also,
I think
like, I mean, unless he was just so good at like being just so calm, like
yeah
your body just kind of twitches when you're awake. Like, like I feel like when I'm
yeah
sitting there watching something, like every now and then I'm just like, whoa, like, a toe twitches or something. But
yeah
then again, I mean, they are stressed, they're talking to each other, they're not noticing all the little things. But
yeah.
wow, just what a twist. That was, I mean, M. Night Shyamalan wishes he gave us a twist like that,
Oh,
Sorry.
that is interesting. Like if you're thinking about the twist in The Sixth Sense and then the twist here, which
It's
one's
pretty
working better for you?
I mean, both for me are like cream of the crop, like highlights of film, of cinema history twists, both of them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, M. Night has had some good twists. Another good 2004 movie, in my opinion, was The Village. Some people don't like it. I thought it was great. So there you go. But,
Hey, we gave the listeners the opportunity to pick that one. They didn't pick it. I don't
oh,
love it, but I
oh, you
haven't
don't
watched
love
it
it.
since
Okay.
I haven't watched it since it came out though. And Jackson was like, "You should
Oh,
rewatch it" because he actually does like it.
yeah.
And,
I haven't
sometimes you
seen it in
rewatch movies
years, but
later, like you might fall in love with
yeah,
it. There is
totally.
definitely some revisionist history with it now where people are like,
Mhm.
his best film is The Village, and like I need you guys to just admit that. Or like, there's always those stories like pieces
Oh,
out
yeah.
there that
Well,
people write.
especially as the more movies he makes, you really kind of like, reframe the other ones, and it's like, "Was that so bad, or was that so weird?" Or. But I love that one, but, yeah, I just feel like I would have loved to have heard what he thought of this movie with that twist, That is not many people can come up with something like that and really sell it, but like you
Yeah,
said, it earns it. It's a movie that's kind of told a little out of order, with kind of
yeah.
flashbacks and like, the meanings to things. We see that, and it's pieced together. Wow, it's a wild ride. It's so gritty. And I'm glad you brought up Seven because, yeah, rewatching it today, I kind of forgot because, how many Saw movies have there been now, Gaius? I haven't seen them all.
We're
I'll
at
be honest.
we're at 10,
We're at
and
10. Okay,
11
I thought we were more. Okay.
and 11's coming out next year. It was supposed
Next
11
year.
was supposed to
Okay.
come out this year, but they delayed
Yeah.
it. I think
Okay,
they're
they
trying to get
delayed
the
it.
script. I think they're trying to get the script right because surprisingly, even though a lot of people love Saw,
Yeah.
and I was kind of surprised, it has a 50% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's down the middle
Oh,
on Rotten Tomatoes.
wow.
Saw 10 it's fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. It actually has better reviews than this movie.
I'm pretty sure I saw 10. I'm so bad. I wish I like knew what these sequels were, but like it's kind of like Friday the 13th to me. They all kind of blend together.
Yeah,
I know I saw 1, 2, 3, and 4 in theaters, but by the fourth one, you couldn't pay me to tell you what happened. I have no idea. Then I
they get
stopped.
overly
But
complicated
they
for
just
no
get
reason.
yeah, and it's just like, how do we outgross like, this first movie was gross, but,
Yeah,
now compared to the sequels, it's like PG-13, you know what I mean? Like, some of those
yeah.
sequels are gnarly. But, I think I did see Saw 10. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I did see this one. I thought it was pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought they've been able to use the credit to them in all the movies so far, except for I guess Spiral, which didn't utilize him.
I didn't see
But
Spiral. I remember I was very intrigued. I thought it was so interesting. Chris Rock
that
came
he's a
up with
big
that
fan and came with the
story and that he's a
idea. Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And Samuel L. Jackson, I was like, this is so interesting. But then the second the reviews came out, I just sort of lost interest. I was like, oh,
yeah,
okay, I don't love the franchise enough to like take a risk. But
yeah,
I might give it a watch someday because I thought that was interesting. Yeah,
yeah.
Saw 10 is a prequel. I forgot. It's between 1 and 2, much like Alien
Too. Yeah,
Romulus between 1 and
nice.
2. Right. I thought that was clever too. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think that was a good one, but they are
because they have
gross
to
for
find ways
sure.
to keep Tobin Bell's Jigsaw
Yeah,
killer alive, and
alive.
they actually admitted how like people who've developed the movies since the first one, how they wrote
Mhm.
themselves into a corner by like killing him off. I think is what in the
Mm.
third one did they kill him off like officially
Oh,
like
yeah, it's that early
eh,
in the franchise,
in West
right.
Side, yeah. But they figure out ways to bring him back in a way that makes sense. It's not just like
Yeah.
they put certain ones in between this one and that one, like
Right.
they did with Saw 10 and all that. And
Right. Right.
so I mean, good for Tobin Bell, like a part that just originated him laying on the floor
Yeah.
for most of the movie.
That's
He
pretty
is
impressive.
now
Do you know Gaius, like, by chance? Because yeah, he doesn't really I mean, he has I guess actually I answered my own question. He does have lines because he's in the recordings,
yeah,
so
yeah,
he needs that, like, iconic scary voice. But,
yeah,
yeah, because he doesn't actually, like, really speak any lines on camera. So I'm like,
right.
did they audition him, like, with, like, material for future sequels knowing that, like, he was gonna be good? Because that could be a real risk if you
That could have been
are
a
just
huge
like
risk.
right? But he fits this world so well. He's great.
Yep. So it introduced us to Tobin Bell. It also introduced us to director James Wan. This is his
Yeah.
feature directorial debut. And the movie was written by Lee Winnell, his friend, and
Yes.
a story that they came up with together as well too. The film
And they
tells a
made a short.
non-linear. They did a
I need
short.
to I
I
need to
guess
finally watch it. I forgot all
they
about
tried
that.
to sell this short all the way back in 2001 in Australia, but they couldn't get anyone to kind of bite it.
Oh.
And then they were urged to travel to Los Angeles in order to help attract producers. They made sure that it was like it's low budget, but they wanted to
Mhm.
attract whoever they could to it. They were successful in 2003 as producers were immediately attached and also formed a horror genre production label, Twisted Pictures, to release the film. And they gave the movie a very, very small budget of they say between $1 to $1.2 million.
Right.
And it was shot in 18 days. The movie ultimately grossed 103.9 million worldwide to become one of the most profitable horror films since Scream in 1996 at the time.
Yep.
And then, as we all know, it has become a major media franchise
Yes.
with several
Huge.
films, video games, theme park rides, and merchandising.
And now
And
a musical parody, a live musical parody. I just
yeah,
saw a post about it. Yep. Well, I mean, you made it when people are singing and acting out your
yeah,
scenes on stage. That's
yeah,
amazing. Yeah. It's become such a massive part of the horror genre. Like imagine life without Saw, even if you don't love it, like
yeah.
that's crazy, right?
Yeah. And like you said earlier, that doesn't the plot's kind of all over the place. It's a non-linear narrative revolving around the mystery of the Jigsaw killer who tests his victims' will to live by putting them through deadly games where they must inflict great physical pain upon themselves to survive. The frame story follows Jigsaw's latest victim, played by Carrie Elwes, who awakened in a large, dilapidated bathroom, with one being ordered to kill the other to save his own family. I
Yes.
want to get this out of the way first, because a lot has been made of Lee Winnell's performance in this
Mm.
compared to his co-star. I mean,
Mhm.
he's a writer first, I guess.
Mhm.
Actor second.
And now a director because he did
Now director.
Invisible
Oh,
Man and
Invisible Man.
and I think The Wolfman, I think he
He's with
directed the new
Wolfman
one.
too. Yeah, yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
So I know people that don't love his performance. They think it's a little over the top. I
Mm.
think it's fine for what it is, for what he needs to do, and I think he gets
Mhm.
better as the movie goes along.
Mm.
Um,
Mhm.
Also, he sells that final moment really well too. I mean,
Yes.
that takes a certain amount
He's
of
just
talent to
bumping,
get yeah.
right?
Uh,
Yeah.
but what do you think of it overall in the
That's a
movie?
great question. It doesn't bother me. So I think I'm okay with it. I now that you say it, yeah, like some parts are a little big, but for me, Carrie Elwes is not, like, big enough. Like, some of his lines, he's so kinda chill, and I understand he's
Yeah,
exhausted. Also, I don't wanna be mean, but just the way Carrie Elwes looks, I mean, he's such a handsome guy. What the hell? Like, ugh. Like, the haircut, like, he does this movie is not I mean, wow, very brave to go on camera looking like that. I'm sorry. So, I was more taken aback by that, both then and now. I'm like he got better looking again after this. I think he saw it and he was like, "Oh yeah," because he popped up in Stranger Things. Like he still
yeah,
works in things, so he kind of lost some weight, got a better haircut. So to me, that stole all my attention over Lee Wannell's performance. I was just like, "What happened to Carrie?" So yeah, it doesn't bother me. Ultimately, I'm okay with it. Yeah, I never really thought anything too bad of it. And I guess I also because I sort of knew when this came
yeah,
out when I was 17, I knew that that actor also wrote it. So I was like
yeah,
so interested in that it's like, "Whoa, okay, who is this guy? Like Australian, he's acting, he wrote it, like, whoa." Like so right off the bat, I was kind of already impressed, you know?
yeah. And I think he, some people were a little too harsh on his
Yeah.
performance. Like again, like like I said, he gets better, and then in the moment that he needs to sell, he sells pretty
Yeah.
well. And you're right,
Mhm.
Carrie is I expected bigger, but I guess he does go big towards the end where he needs to sell
Yeah.
off his
Oh boy.
yeah.
Wow, that
So like
moment. Oh my god. You're like,
that he
"That's
does. I
why it's
mean, like
called Saw," you
oh
know?
yeah,
Like,
right. I think
because
we
we
all
were
kind of
wondering, like, Saw.
reacted like that in the theater. We're like, oh, that's
Yes.
why.
Mhm.
Like, there we go.
'Cause they it doesn't take long in the movie. It's about maybe 10 minutes or so when they discover, like, the bag of saws in the toilet, I believe. So it's like, okay, that, like, alright, it's called Saw, like, there must be something to do with the saw. But that? Oh boy. Oh boy. Wow,
Yeah.
wow, wow. Amazing.
Yeah, I like how the movie just starts where you're just already thrust into a situation, like
Agreed.
him waking up in the bathtub, and then I never pay attention. I can remember the first time I saw it, did not pay attention to the key going down the drain. Like I know I probably should have paid attention to
Right.
that moment in theater, but I
Me
didn't.
too. Yeah. I always
So
kinda
when it
forget about that.
so when it
Yeah.
played it back, I was like, oh, like fuck. I guess that didn't happen at the beginning.
Oh my god, it's bleak. What an
Yeah,
ending. Oh my god, it's so
because
bleak.
it's bleak too because he's done now, I guess, what he like everyone's done what they needed to do to get out, right? And I love him
Mhm.
having that kind of like total recall moment of like, oh shit, that thing I needed is now gone, and now I'm not gonna be able to get
Mhm.
out of here.
Mhm.
And yeah, that makes that makes it all the more bleak that
Oh my god.
there was no getting out of this for him from the start based on how that all kicks off.
Right.
And yeah, crazy but
Crazy. And I feel like this movie must have started escape rooms, Like, and
yeah,
I never
I would
really thought
imagine.
of it that way because escape rooms still didn't come out in like huge to be hugely popular for like at least a decade after this, I feel like, around there. But it's just so funny rewatching it now, like, oh my god, yeah, this whole movie is basically an escape room. Like Saw
Yeah.
created that, and then the whole torture porn uh trend, I
For
guess.
better or
I guess you can call it a trend.
worse.
I mean, there's
Yeah.
still some movies that are super gnarly, so I don't know if it's a trend anymore, but it kind of opened that
It made them
subgenre,
very
I guess.
popular for a little bit. I mean, because like
Yeah,
there would be no Hostel, I guess, without
right.
it, and
Yeah,
yeah,
because
and it,
this was after, Scream 3 and other movies had to be a little, toned down because of Columbine
but yeah,
5 years prior, right? So, horror movies were and, The Ring, I'm just trying to think of, like, other, like, big, horror movies leading up to this were a little quieter. Wrong
yeah,
Turn was a little bloody, but not that bad, So,
right.
this really brought things to another level.
I wonder if that influenced the Hills Have Eyes remake too, like to make that more brutal and
Probably, that was brutal. I
whatnot.
love that
Yeah,
remake, but whoo,
yeah,
that is hard to watch, yeah.
yeah, yeah. It started for better or worse. I don't know how I feel about it as a whole.
Mm,
Because I don't mind it if there's story there. But what we
mhm,
saw even with the sequels to this is that it became more
mhm.
about like how grossly can we kill you, or like
Yeah, how do we raise
it
the stakes?
became more about the games and devices and like some of the
Yes.
things that this guy's creating by like the midway point is just like okay. I mean, I guess
Uh-huh,
he a lot of time in his hands, but yeah, okay.
right.
He could create all that stuff. Like
Like, I didn't really love Saw 2, even though I continued watching the next few in theaters, like, Saw
yeah.
2 was just I just remember that being absolutely gross. Again, my, fear and hatred of needles, that movie didn't help
Oh, and
me
she falls to the
whatsoever. That
hypodermic
was
needle pit.
that made me so angry. Oh my god, that was awful. But, yeah, that's why I love horror, but I haven't stuck super closely with the Saw franchise, even though this original is amazing, just because, yeah, it kind of felt like, "You thought last one was gross? Well, wait till you see this
Yeah,
one." Alright, well, is there a reason for it to exist, besides that, So,
yeah.
yeah.
There's also more story in this one. Like there is, I mean, it
It's a real
and yeah,
mystery,
real mystery. And
right?
like you said, there is some gross stuff in this, but like I can handle that if there's like a good story behind it. And
Right,
it does takes its time, like unspoiling itself a bit. Like it doesn't
right.
spin its wheels. Like I mean, it really just kind of like it knows where it's headed.
Yeah.
And
It's almost
and
like
I
the
love
memento of, like, horror or something,
yeah, it's
like,
almost like yeah,
in a way, because it's yeah, we're kinda going back and forth and, like Monica Potter, who's great in this with their daughter, like, that's some really scary stuff. Like, they're tied
yeah,
up, and then we kinda go back to them being tied up, like, later towards the end of the film. I'm like, "Oh, whoa, okay, yeah, we're jumping around to, like, see
yeah.
more of what's going on," which is very creative. you know?
You mentioned earlier, who did you forget that was in this? Like,
Okay. So oh my gosh, guys. So I had watched this a bunch of times. Like I own the DVD. I remember it. So because the DVD case was like clear, it was like see-through, if you
yeah,
remember back then. So but I haven't seen this in years. Completely forgot, like gasped, jaw dropped, completely forgot Danny Glover is in this movie.
I
I
figured it was
don't
gonna be
know,
Danny Glover.
right? I know. I'm like, you probably know, but I just have to tell you, I am gobsmacked. I completely forgot. I remembered Monica Potter, of course, Carrie, Lee, there aren't that many
Yeah,
characters. I remember Dina Meyer from Starship Troopers and Bats.
yeah.
Um, completely forgot Danny Glover is in this, and not only in it, but like very
A decent amount of
substantial
screen time.
role.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But I
Very decent
forget,
amount.
he wasn't in any of the sequel. Were
No,
any characters
I don't think they
from
used
this
him again.
movie? Yeah,
Carrie always
no
is
one,
Carrie always pops up in the
one of
one
them, right?
that was supposed to be the last one. I think there was like I don't think they call it the final chapter. It was the one that came out
Oh,
before
yeah, saw the final
or the one that
chapter, I'm pretty
the one
sure.
before it came out before Jigsaw. That one he was in,
Okay.
I believe.
He did pop
Um,
I thought he popped up in that one. Did Lee Whannell
I don't
ever?
think he did.
Yeah. It's
Again,
interesting how
guys, I'm
they
letting you know, like they all kind of blend together
Yeah,
after
I
like
know.
maybe four, like 4 through whatever blend together.
Exactly, me
Um,
too. I'm like, "Sure, okay."
like
I know Donnie Wahlberg is in some of them, one of them?
yeah, maybe a couple of them. I don't know. Yeah, I do remember he pops up in like
Yeah.
a future installment.
And, the girl
Um,
from Seventh Heaven is in, the
the
sequel, as
second
in
one,
Saw 2.
yeah,
Yes, Beverly
Beverly Mitchell,
Mitchell.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, Danny Glover is in this quite a bit. Has a pretty
Yeah.
decent part too. I mean, like,
And he feels very Morgan Freeman going back to Seven. Like, you know what I mean? With
yeah, a
with
little
the
bit,
other
yeah,
cop, like he was giving me his best Seven, and it works, and
yeah,
yeah, I had forgotten again how we were just in the last episode talking about House on Haunted Hill and its atmospheric lighting and sets. Man, like I remember and watching it again, like I get so creeped out when Danny Glover finds his way to like Jigsaw's lair,
yeah,
and when like shit really goes down and it's dark and spooky and the it's just really good setting for sure. Very scary.
yeah.
Oh my god, so scary,
And
right?
proves what you can do with very little money. I mean,
Absolutely.
like primarily you're in like one location, other than like the flashbacks that we go to.
Mhm.
And I think we talked about this with House on the Hill, like a horror. You can see every cent on screen, and this
Absolutely.
doesn't really look like a 1 million or $1.2 million movie. It looks like more expensive than it actually is,
Yeah.
and I think that's credit to them having to make a short film first, so they know how to make something like on
Right.
the cheap and like make it
Mhm.
look decent. And
Mhm.
they really do. I mean, I like the look of the movie. This look of this film became like a signature
Mhm.
look for not just this franchise, but other movies that try to
Right.
copy it in the called like torture porn,
Right.
subgenre of horror. Um,
Yeah.
I I like the look of it. I mean, one of my friends hates the whole like there's certain shots where like things are like sped up and it gets loud, and he was like, oh, I hate that. But like that
Yeah.
wasn't really a thing when the first one came out. So
When
like,
this came out, that was,
yeah,
like, kinda revolutionary, like
yeah,
yeah, the loudness, I agree, it was, like, never great, but the sped up, like, panic,
yeah,
tension, like, especially of, like, Amanda in the famous,
yeah.
trap on her face, which is,
The
like, the
reverse bear
poster of the
trap. Yeah,
movie, like, when that's all sped up, like, oh my god, it just adds to the absolute tension in the movie, but, yeah, then that didn't take long for that to become not only a signature of this movie, but yeah, then just like I feel like especially trailers were just like, and it's like,
yeah,
"Oh my
yeah.
god,
Like, oh, like,
chill,"
like calm
Yeah.
down. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
another person too, Shawnee Smith, who took a small
Yeah.
part in this one and turned that into. She became a big, almost not on almost an equal footing with Tobin Bell as far as like
I would say
recognizable
so,
face from the
yeah.
franchise. Like
She's
she was in the
probably
last
been
one too.
in
Like
Right,
I don't,
she's probably been
yeah,
in the most, like, movies right after him, for
yeah.
Saw, so
And they
she's
give that relationship
definitely
a lot of emotional weight too, like as they went
Yes.
along, like and they paid off in Saw 10. I thought like they had a really,
Mhm,
it's so interesting to think because even when you're talking about this movie, because he is the villain of the piece, right? Like he is like
mhm.
even though he's been wronged in a way,
Right, and he's
this is
teaching
not
a lesson,
yeah,
to all these people.
this is not how you get your
I
retribution. It's
know,
not
I
at
know.
all.
I was just talking about it on my show, discussing Sleepy Hollow, and I won't spoil it in case anyone hasn't seen the Tim Burton version, but like, yeah, like, when some of these killers or masterminds reveal their motive, it's like, oh shit, yeah, like I totally understand that sucks, but it's like, but you can't be doing this to people. No,
Yeah,
like there are other ways
yeah,
to, get your retribution, like, or like Billy, in Scream, it's like, oh, that is so sad and terrible about your parent, about your dad and your mom, but,
yeah, yeah,
but you can't go killing people, Billy. Like, no.
yeah,
So, Jigsaw, it is funny because, yeah, I mean, you kind of feel for him, especially he's dying, of cancer and all
yeah,
that. And he's just trying to teach people like what they have and they don't realize it.
yeah,
And then that famous line to me, and I remember it was in the trailers and it really like sent a chill down my spine when Amanda tells Danny Glover, tells the cops, he helped me. It's like, ooh,
yeah.
spooky.
So
And
that
how smart
is,
of them to take that line of her
yeah,
and yeah, stretch that now over sequels where it's like,
yeah.
yeah, she now is his accomplice, right?
And that scene, other than like the ending, that whole scene is like one of the stronger scenes in the movie. It's
Yeah.
that first of all, I mean, it's that the reverse bear trap is such a cool thing too. Like it, like when they
Oh my
conceive
God.
that.
The look.
Also, not
Yeah.
too gross. I mean, it's a gross scene, but not as gross as like future traps and stuff get.
Oh, yes.
Uh,
Uh-huh.
and then her doing what she needs to do to get that key, and we know what she
Oh
does to
boy.
get it.
Yeah.
Some aggressive
It's
stabbing, and
great.
then digging through
Yes.
is like, yeah. But that scene is so strong because she does it, she gets it off, and like she's like crying, and there's relief that she
Mhm.
has it off. And I do love that she has that line too, where Danny Glover is like, "Is it not true that you are like a criminal drug addict?" And like
Mm.
she's like, "Yes," she says what she says, and like then you realize like this is why he's doing what he's doing, because someone like
Mhm.
her will appreciate her life more now because of this.
Right. He's kind
So
of
it is,
recruiting followers
yeah.
in a
So
way,
the movie
like
exists in a really interesting gray area where it's like, I mean, it's wrong, but
Mhm.
for
Mhm.
someone like her, she found value in that, and it went from this like
Absolutely.
horrific, terrible thing for her to something that helped her, that changed her life,
Yes. That now
and
she's grateful and, like, clean, we can assume,
yeah,
although I feel like in the sequels, am I making it up? I feel like she still is a drug user, but maybe I'm just making that up.
I
I
can't
can't
remember.
remember
See, they all
now.
blend together, dude.
Yeah, they all blend together. It's foggy, so don't quote me on that. But yeah, like she's a changed woman and now she's pledged her allegiance to him. I mean, the
Yeah,
Saw 2 twist, where like she's in it, but like now we all along we think she's being targeted by him again, but no,
yeah,
she's
yeah,
in on it. I mean, that was a shock, especially after that
yeah.
stupid needle pit. I'm like, then why'd you make her do that? But I guess it's to show how absolutely crazy she is and how she used to
Yeah,
be sticking herself with needles for drugs.
yeah.
So,
And
God.
she has
Anyway,
to, and she has to be like, I'm a part of this group that's also being targeted, so she has to
right.
prove, like.
Oh my God. Yeah. So that was a
So
twist. I
that
mean,
that reveal was pretty good too. I mean, I
that
don't not
reveal
as
was a
strong
shock.
as this one, but like it's
Right.
still,
Right.
but
Yeah.
it
But
did surprise me because I wasn't expecting that. I was like, oh, I
yeah.
mean, I
Yeah.
thought they just brought her back because she had that one scene. It was a big, strong one scene, and
The
like that's
most
cool they brought her back.
memorable the most memorable like reveals in this franchise, they're memorable for a reason. I mean, like
Yeah,
super creative, big twists. I mean, this first one
music
at
helps a
least,
lot.
music helps a
that
lot. Oh
that
yeah.
theme helps a lot. Like
That
it
theme
as
is
soon as it
so
starts, you're like,
it's funny because it's one of the few like horror franchise themes that like actually isn't really like a scary song. I guess it
that's kind
is, but
it's kind of a
it's
bop.
more like dramatic.
Yeah.
It's like, like battle. It's like battle music or something to me,
Yeah,
So
we've been to clubs during like Halloween time where they will play like remixes of that or
oh
club
my
versions
God.
of it, and it
Da-na-na,
actually it's pretty
da-na-na.
good. Like certain DJs can mix it well, and like yeah, it's banger for
That
sure.
is too funny. I love that so much. I love it.
Um,
That's great.
I love that the movie also kind of sends you in different directions, thinking like, oh, this is what
Mhm,
this is, or this is what this could be. Like, I mean,
mhm.
I think for most of the movie, we had once they kind of did their whole reveal about Zep, who Mike played by Michael Emerson, who I mean,
Right.
he just has a face that looks like he's gonna be up to no good.
Absolutely.
Uh,
This introduced me to him. I feel like this was
yeah,
his first big thing before
yeah, they end
Lost,
up lost. Yeah,
and
so
he
like
was
this whole
just
time, you're
so
thinking like he
spooky.
maybe is the one that's like doing all
Right.
this,
Yeah.
and I
And
know,
he is involved, right? Because he's
yeah,
the
he is, yeah.
one. Oh my God, it's very that I remember made us scream as well. People forget about the when he's in the closet of the girl's bedroom,
Okay, so that
and
scene is
then
still scary.
that is so terrifying and a little homage to
Like Black
Black
Christmas,
Christmas,
yeah,
right? which I hadn't seen by this time. So I was like, oh my god, the eye and the thing, you know.
Yeah.
But then on top of it, when Monica Potter comes running in, and then he's just standing in the room under a
Like,
sheet and
oh,
grabs her.
she, yeah.
Whoa, like that whole sequence, people kind of forget, especially when you're thinking of the whole franchise, but very effective, fucking scary as hell. Like, and with
Yeah.
the lights on and everything. I mean, yeah, this movie
Yeah.
is pretty relentless at times with the horror, Yeah.
Yeah. That scene, it scared me 20 years ago. It still scares me now.
Oh, yes,
It's
because
it's
doesn't he
the
whisper?
it's and it's
He,
just
like,
he
whispers to
says,
her.
"Hello, little girl." Like, he's like, "Hello, little girl," and then she like, and the fact is that he's been in there for a while because she keeps
Yes.
saying like she keeps alluding to like something in the room, right?
Mhm.
And once you realize that, like, oh, she's been telling the truth for a while, and
Mhm.
then like it's the hello little girl, and like and your brain doesn't really compute whether or not you're hearing the voice first or seeing his
Right.
eye through the crack
Yeah.
of the door. And I like you had not seen Black Christmas at that time. So when
Right.
I did see Black Christmas finally, I was like, oh, that's what this is. They're paying homage to,
Right.
and that's a
Mhm.
creepy eyeball shot too. Like that. That is a signature moment from that movie. Still freaks me out.
Mhm.
Still get chills every time I watch it.
Oh my
Also in a similar fashion where like Zep was whispering, like you actually in Black Christmas, he's whispering
Yeah.
something too. Like he's like basically saying like Agnes, don't tell them what we did. Like while he's like looking
Yes.
at her through the door. So like
Right,
a
which
cool homage to
then
that movie.
which is funny because then Scream 2 kind of does a little homage to that. I feel like in the bathroom
In the
with
bathroom.
Omar
Yep.
Epps, the killer, it's Mickey, is like
Yeah.
whispering like, "Don't," like, "Listen, mommy," something with like
Yeah.
mommy, like much like,
Yeah.
Black Christmas. Yeah. So love all the little nods to that great horror movie, which also has a big anniversary this year, Black Christmas.
Yeah.
But man, yeah, the girls' bedroom stuff. Holy cow, that sticks with me. That is, and also like then they're tied up and we don't really see him fully yet, but we see he has a gun. That little
Yeah.
girl, whoever she is, great actress because
So I
she's
believe her name is Mackenzie
yeah.
Vega. Uh
Oh wow,
she was young Nancy Callahan in Sin City. That now I recognize the face. Like when they show her as a little girl.
Oh, love Sin
And she
City. Oh my
is the
gosh.
sister of Alexa Vega, who was in all the Spy Kids
Oh,
movies. So
okay. That
there
makes
you go.
sense. Interesting. Well, she was great too because
Uh,
then when like the gun, and he's like standing right by them and she's crying and kind of screaming through like her like gag. Oh man, like that just adds to
Yeah,
the
those little kid tears, little girl tears, I feel so genuine. I feel like
Oh,
maybe it didn't take much to work her up to that because
yeah.
everyone says when you're making a horror movie, it's not scary while you're making it, but this is also a
Right.
child, so I don't know.
Yeah, I know.
Her
Yeah,
fear and everything looks so genuine and terrifying. I think it's
absolutely.
when he's holding the gun to their heads and he's
Yes.
like checking their heart, like and then like
Right,
it
their
just
heartbeat.
pumping,
Oh,
hump
yeah.
faster and faster and faster, and
It's
then
just
like
so deranged. Oh my
yeah,
god, that is so twisted. I forgot about the heartbeat part and like, oh
yeah.
my god, that's so sick. But yeah, she is squirming and crying and screaming. And I have to say, she might be like the underdog of the movie because that just makes that whole sequence even more terrifying and more realistic, right?
Yeah, and I realize that I don't give Monica Potter enough credit because I always kind of forget that she's in stuff.
Right.
Because
I
like
know.
I think the first thing I maybe saw her was Patch Adams. I think that's like
Oh,
uh
probably. Yeah.
and I hate what happens with her character in that movie. It's just like it's
Well,
such an
she always
unnecessary like like
like to
unnecessary
me,
fate
she
for that character.
right. To me, she often plays like annoyed. So I'm like, Monica
Yeah,
Potter.
yeah.
Like, but she does it well. And yeah, we kind of forget that she's a scream queen. She was in this, and I don't know if
The
I ever
Last
actually
House on the
saw
Left
it.
remake.
Well,
She
that
yeah,
remake she was in, and she was great in that.
and
I loved that remake.
she handles some business with Aaron Paul. Like she does her thing in that movie
Absolutely.
too.
She's in that, and she was in the Kiss the Girl sequel, which I don't know if I ever actually saw.
Oh,
Along Came
Along
a
Came the
Spider,
Spider.
which is
Yeah,
like horror adjacent. Kiss the Girls, in
yeah.
my opinion, very scary for like a
Underrated,
not
by
really
the way.
horror movie, but like holy cow, that movie is very freaky. So,
It's way underrated, way underrated. When
absolutely.
I think it was a couple months ago. It was recently like in Netflix's like top 5 because I don't know if
Mm,
they just added it or whatever. I was like, good. Finally,
probably.
people are like, and it wasn't
Yes.
like it was a flop when it came out. It made money
No.
like when it came
Oh
out,
yeah.
a decent
Oh
amount of
yeah. I
money.
remember, but like
It came out like a week or so before I Know You Did Last Summer, which was
I
like
know. Right?
so like
I know. What a
yeah,
fun,
but
like, 97 double
nice
feature, but
little
also Carrie
yeah
Elwes was in that one too, I believe, if I
yeah.
remember correctly. He was in Kiss the Girls.
He actually was he the one that I always forget because like I know Tony Goldwyn. Tony Goldwyn was in Kiss the Girls as
Oh
well.
yeah, Tony Goldwyn.
I always
Yeah.
forget who ends up being Casanova. Like, is it him? Because I haven't watched it in a really long time.
It's a from what I remember, it's neither of them. It's someone else.
Oh, okay.
Like,
Okay. So I was
yeah.
like, there's some kind of twist too. Like, I was like, they think
Yes.
it's all done, and then Ashley Judd thinks she's safe, and then she realizes
I
she's
think,
not.
or maybe
when
I'm
she's in
wrong.
the
Oh
house.
no, you know what? No, I'm wrong. I'm totally wrong. I'm envisioning someone in the movie, but no, it is. I mean, spoiler alert, everybody. Hopefully,
Sorry, well, it came out
hopefully everyone's
97,
seen Kiss the Girls. But no, it is Carrie Elwes. Yeah, it is. He is Casanova. He's the killer because he has a big showdown with Ashley Judd. Oh my god, now I really want to
Because they
rewatch
do like
that.
a fake out. I think with Tony Goldwyn. Like, so I know he's
Yes.
in it, but they do.
Yes.
I think there is a fake out with like who the actual killer is, and then
Because I feel like, is it Tony Goldwyn's voice? Like
yeah, I
in
think
the
that's who you. I think that's who you hear.
Yeah,
Like when you're
yeah.
like, yeah, when she's talking to. Yeah,
right.
that's
Yeah.
a good movie.
Oh
I
man,
need to cover
so
that one.
spooky. Yeah. If you ever want to talk about that in the future, let me know because man, that's good. But anyway, I got to that because Monica Potter's sort of in that franchise, if
And
you
she
will.
actually, and she's like the bad guy in Along Came a Spider. She's like the one that they reveal as like the.
Oh, is she? I never really
yeah,
saw
yeah.
it. Something about it like looked good, but didn't look as good as Kiss the Girl. So I'm like, meh.
It's
But
not as like thriller-ish as like
yeah, it's
the girls.
more
It's
like
cop. I won't say
crime.
cop
Yeah.
procedural, like crime
Yeah.
procedural a little bit, but yeah.
Right.
But
Right.
yeah,
Mhm.
but involving the Alex Cross character that
Alex
Morgan
Cross. That's
Freeman.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, like Monica Potter, I always forget. Like, like, oh, she's reliable when she's in stuff usually. Like she
Mhm.
usually like holds her own and
Oh yeah.
she does some like good stuff here. Like when
I
like,
low key want to watch her and Freddie Prinze Jr. reunite in that.
oh, I saw that.
The
I
girl
didn't
in
see
the
it, but I saw
pool.
the
Did you
trailer.
see it?
Yeah,
Okay, you
I
saw
saw
the
the
trailer.
trailer. I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah, like
I
I
forgot they
love
were in
that
the movie together before
they
that.
were
Was
in
it
Head Over Heels,
Heels?
which I saw in theaters. Why, oh why did I do that? And then
Oh, he had a
also it's a
weird
She's
run.
All That reunion with Freddie Prinze Jr. and Kevin Pollak because Kevin Pollak was
Yeah.
right. We talked about that on my
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I do kind of want to see that because it just looks like a fun, mindless little kind of like Lifetime-ish thriller, and
Yeah.
I could be into that. But yeah, we forget Monica Potter knows when to pop into some good thrillers, and yeah, she's consistent. I'm glad you brought up Last House on the Left. I forgot she was in that remake.
And
Yeah,
she gets
good.
some badass moments in this too. Like she like
Yeah.
holds her own. I mean, like,
Yeah,
like
she
when she
stabs him right in the leg, I think, or no, right?
Yeah.
I feel like
I think she does, and then
something.
she like
Yeah,
and then she has the whole thing which kind of sets off her husband because he doesn't know what's going on. It's the whole like
Mm.
he puts her on the phone like because he wants her to tell him like you failed, and then she
right.
says that, but then that's when she like double crosses, tries to like
Yes.
overtake him, and then all you can hear is like fucking gunshots and stuff in the background.
Right,
So
and
he
he's
assumes-
crying and
so he
freaking
assumes-
out.
So that's when he gets good. So
Yes.
he assumes the worst there because he thinks that like his wife and his daughter are probably been
Right.
murdered.
And there's good
Um,
tension between him and his wife because like they're having issues. They're not like
Yeah,
totally
and he's been having an affair, right? Like there's
right.
that, and that's why
Yep.
one of the reasons why he's been chosen as like
Right.
as one of Jigsaw's victims. In addition to like he's also the oncologist that works where
Right.
John Kramer. We keep calling him Jigsaw. John Kramer. Yes,
Yeah.
I guess
John
real
Kramer,
name.
right. Where he's
Finds
a
out about his
patient.
cancer diagnosis, patient and all that too, and that's how
Yeah.
also how it gets Zepp involved. Like
Right.
there's it's such a like the screenplay is so tight and there's
It
no
really
filler
is.
really
Yeah.
like there's no like it's no excess like meat. It's just like
Right.
it feels like it's a very concise and deliberate story, and I think that's the
Yeah.
only reason why those twists and turns work so well.
Oh my
Is
god, yeah.
because like they know exactly what they're making, and like I wish like once this was successful, I knew it would get a sequel. I didn't know it was gonna be
Of
like
course.
it was gonna become like a tradition like every October, and it was for a while.
I
Like
know,
every year there was one.
I know. Yeah.
Which was fun in the beginning because it was like, oh, this is like a cool because like when I saw the second one, I was like liked it, didn't like it as much as the first
Well,
one.
apparently the second one, if I remember correctly, if I think I'm accurate on this, the sequel, that script was not actually Saw 2. It was a whole different
Oh, and they
idea
just repurposed
that
the-
apparently, the company, who was it, Lionsgate or whatever, was like,
Yeah.
hey, why don't we just like tweak some things and just make this Saw 2 since they probably didn't have like a solid idea right away for a
Yeah.
sequel only a year later, right? So it makes sense to kind of tack on stuff. But yeah, so that's why maybe also why I don't fully love it because it kind of feels a little like Frankenstein into the franchise. But
Yeah.
it is pretty wild, and I sadly do think that's maybe why we kind of got some Saw fatigue and torture porn fatigue because it was every October.
Yeah. and I remember there was no real growth almost box office wise, but compared to like there was from the first one to the second one, but like eventually like with the sequels you were in like the early $30 million range, and then by the time
Right.
they kept going, then they got lower and lower
Yeah.
and lower.
Right.
So I was all in. I saw the second one in theaters. Saw the
Yeah.
third one. I even thought the third one was not that great, but good enough.
Yeah. I
But
remember
once we
it
got
was
to
pretty
four
decent.
or five, that's when I started to like, this is like getting repetitive, and it's not even like, yeah, there's some cool little twists I guess you're throwing in because like that became not only was the gimmick of the franchise was the gore and the traps, it also became like the twist. There was
Yeah.
like a twist in all of them,
Yeah.
and then you were waiting for it. You're like, oh, okay, what's it gonna be? And some of them would be clever, but like they were never as clever as like what we got in the first movie.
Right.
And it started to spin its wheels a bit, and that's not something the
Mhm.
first one did. The first one knew it's such a really like I don't know.
Yeah,
I
like,
can't say that.
I need to now that I've rewatched it, I need to, like, go back and read old articles. I wanna know, did Lee and, like, James, like, did they, before they, like, really wrote the script, like, plan all these great, like, connections and backstories and all that, or were they developing that as they wrote it? Because I mean, it works so well. It really we forget because of its long franchise, stature,
Yeah,
we forget that, like, that first one, that is one solid horror script for sure. Like, I gotta,
yeah,
like, do scenes from that in my acting classes that I teach because, like, why not? Especially a lot of it's, like, almost like a play. It's just 2 guys in a room
yeah. Just
together,
two
you
guys in
know?
a room, and
Yeah.
and honestly, the stuff that they do later in the movie, it's like from like Carrie Ellis like having to saw off his
Oh my
foot,
god,
and
yeah.
then all that stuff, and then him being like, oh, I have to shoot you. He has to shoot anyone else's character, and like
Right.
they're both in such a high level of state of like panic that feels so palpable and real. Like I doesn't feel like I'm watching two actors act, which is why I think they
Right.
both are great in those moments towards the end.
Yeah.
And like you can tell, and then like Carrie Ellis looks physically exhausted. He looks like he's about to die. Like you see like the color
Oh
draining out
my god,
out of
yeah.
him. Like it's like like he's barely talking like above a whisper when he's like talking to him, and
It's n yeah.
he's like, I'll come back for you. I promise. And then like and then he's crying. The guy's like crying, like don't leave me. Like, and at this point they bonded with each other because they're like we're in this
Yeah.
like mess together.
Yeah.
And then of course like not only are we in this mess together, but like if I was in this kind of situation, like this heightened, like scary situation, and now the one person who's been in here the entire time with me is not going to go, that would make me feel. I would feel that way too. Like, please don't leave me. I don't want to be here alone.
Right.
So there's a lot in that. Like, those final moments are so well written and so well acted that it
Yeah.
elevates an already good movie to like a great one by that
Right.
point.
That's
Like,
a great point. Well said.
yeah,
Yeah. It leaves you totally know what they're both feeling. Because 'cause you're right. I mean, man, he loses the color and he is really good, yeah, once he's cut his foot off. Oh my god.
yeah,
But, yeah, you're right there with them, and you're desperate as well, and, oh,
yeah.
man, it's rough. It's rough and wild. Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lot too, and like and I think that's what I wish the whole franchise maintained. That I guess that would be hard to do. I mean, it would get old and
It's
repetitive,
it's,
but
like, sort of impossible, honestly, like, it
yeah,
makes sense to keep it going and have it be a new, horror franchise, but it's kind of impossible unless you just hire some of the absolute best writers who are available and, like, you really put your heads together, but, yeah, by nature, I just feel like you can't keep having these amazing twists and payoffs. After a while, it will just kinda get a little formulaic,
yeah,
which it can still be very enjoyable, of course. It's just
yeah,
not as jaw-dropping and, like I said, this was like an instant classic. Like, that ending, even as a teen, I was like, "Holy cow, I am watching a new movie that we're gonna be talking about 20 years from now, 40 years from now," right?
yeah.
Like, it'll be on the long list of, like, big horror movies, like,
And
ones
I
to
remember
watch.
that's all anyone wanted to talk about. And like, if you had friends that hadn't seen
Oh,
it, you're like,
yeah.
oh god damn it! Like that's like not saying like it. You know what? It didn't.
Yep.
It never. I don't think it ever quite reached. Only because Saw wasn't as accessible as The Sixth Sense was. The Sixth Sense, I think, people that
Yeah.
didn't like horror movies could go see The Sixth Sense because like
Yeah.
it's more like because we like me and Jackson struggle with calling The Sixth Sense a horror movie on the show because it feels
Right.
more like a drama
It's like
than
a
a horror
dark,
film.
creepy drama. Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't know if it's horror. I would call that like, yeah, like a thriller. I think it's ultimately a thriller. But I
Yeah.
mean, there's some disturbing visuals for sure. I can
Yeah,
understand how it
sure.
can be too much for people. But yeah, I mean, the Sixth Sense ultimately, in terms of twists of '99,
Yeah.
was bigger, I think, because of the Bruce Willis power. And
Yeah.
yeah, like you said, it attracted more of a crowd because I mean, this is horror. This is
Yeah.
gross, especially for
Yeah.
2004, you know. So
It's not
yeah,
pulling any punches. Yep.
right.
For-
Yeah.
but yeah,
But also
but I
an
think people still talked about it though. I mean, just not on that
right.
level, but it was,
Right.
that first thing that we would bring up. We were like, you have to see it, and like we didn't
Yes.
want to like really be like because of the ending, but you're like, oh, but it ends like so well,
Yeah.
like
Oh yeah.
completely surprising. Yeah,
You bring up such a good point because I remember, yeah, going back to that same weekend was my friend who I saw it with. It was her Halloween party. And I remember, a bunch of people there and just being like, "Oh my God, you have to see it." And like telling like the few friends that went with me, like, shh, like you cannot like spoil anything, but like that was the talk for weeks was like, "Oh man, once
yeah,
you see it, let me know. We got to talk." Much like The
yep,
Ring, like
yeah.
of that era, like The Grudge was ultimately for me like
I was
kind
gonna
of
bring that up. I was gonna bring that up to you
it's
because the
not great.
Grudge made a lot of money that October. It was
And
very successful
I
financially.
think that's because of how good The Ring was 2 years prior. I
Yeah,
really do
it
think
kind of
so.
it piggybacked off of that pretty well.
Yeah.
What I do appreciate that about that movie, and I'm glad I found someone to talk about that with for its anniversary too, because like I
Oh,
haven't
yeah.
watched it in a while, and I don't know if
Right.
it holds. I mean, because I like Sarah Michelle Gellar, so I need to.
Oh, yeah.
I it can't just be because of that. I hope it holds up well. I don't really. I
Right.
haven't seen it a while, but I do remember during that time that The Grudge was getting talked about more than Saw. But I think
Mhm.
over time, that became not the case. Like everyone
Mhm.
was talking about Saw a bit more. I mean, look, I mean, Grudge 2, that sequel didn't do well at all. It didn't make any money.
Mhm.
Oh, it did
And I
made some
remember
money,
I
but not
saw that
nearly.
in theaters,
Yeah, it didn't
as
make
well.
nearly as much money as the first movie, and then that
Right.
Saw sequel did made
Yeah.
more money, at least domestically and worldwide, than the
Isn't that
first one did.
interesting? Well,
Uh,
also, The Grudge 2 kills Sarah Michelle in the hospital in, like, the
yeah,
opening scene, and I feel like you can't really kill off the scream queen
yeah,
hero, first
people love her
up.
too much. Yep,
It's gotta at least be, like, midway through, because then it's like, "Oh, alright, so who do we have to get used to now?" Like, it
yeah.
definitely was a letdown, So
I do like that you had those two movies like that within weeks of each other that they didn't kind
Mhm.
of like they did like they were both successful. So like it
Right.
wasn't one that usually two horror releases can like drown one out. And
Totally. Yeah.
and I think because like they were just so different, that's probably
Yeah.
why they didn't drown each other out.
You're right,
And
it's pretty special they did not cannibalize each other, for sure. There were
yeah,
2 huge hits in the same month, just probably, what, 2, maybe 3 weeks apart?
part,
Yeah.
yep. And but you're
Mhm.
right, the Grudge had the ring halo all over it. So I think
Totally.
that
I
added a
think
lot to
that's
it.
why and I mean, Sarah Michelle was huge,
Yeah.
Buffy was over by that time. I also love well, we're fans of Roswell. I also love that Jason Behr is in that movie as well
Yeah, and
as
they've been
her.
friends forever in real life too. That's also a
Oh,
nice
really? I
little
love that.
connection.
He's
Yeah,
such a
yeah,
babe. Oh my god. That was fun to see him in that. But,
yeah.
yeah, I think it was a mix of maybe her and then the success of The Ring. I mean, that was The Ring was amazing, far
Yeah.
better than The Grudge.
I think it's
So,
funny that Jason Behr met his wife on that movie. They don't have scenes
that's
together.
right. Katie
I don't think
Strickland, right?
I don't think they don't have any scenes together
They
whatsoever.
no,
Like
I
they
don't
met.
think so, right? They
They
must
all. I
have
guess they all hung out in Tokyo together. Like I guess when they were making
Oh,
it.
okay. Yeah.
But I always think that, and they're still together. But
Yeah.
so kudos to
That's
them.
right, from that movie, yeah. Yeah, because what I didn't love and I know we're not talking about it, but what I didn't love about that movie was it sort of had, like, these disjointed stories
Well,
that,
it did
like,
the whole
weren't
like. No, I think it also did the whole non-linear thing, right? It kept jumping
right.
around from like
But,
different.
like, not in a very enjoyable way. Like, this, it
Yeah.
was a puzzle. Ha, get it,
Yeah.
jigsaw. So,
What I
you
do
know
appreciate about it though is that at least they had the original director from the original movie, so it still had the
that's
same like
true.
visual aesthetic of that, and it
That's
didn't feel like
interesting.
it doesn't really feel like an Americanized remake. Even though there's a bunch of Americans in it, it
Right.
still feels like
Yeah.
something that he could have made like in Japan. So
Yeah.
I like
That's
that part of
true.
it from what I remember.
Mhm,
But
mhm.
no, but I will no matter the quality of the movie, I still love like if there as in October where like you have these two signature horror
Right.
releases coming out and
Yeah.
And I'm sure there are like people that fans of the Grudge that like still love it. I mean, it has like
Mhm.
a really low score on IMDb. I think it's like a 5.2. It's like, ooh.
Mm,
And
mhm.
I think this one's still in the high sevens. Like it's been
Yeah.
this first one is still universally loved. And we brought up seven before, but it even has the seven motif of having a shock ending too. Because like the seven
Mhm,
ends in
that's
a
true.
way that's like where you're
Oh
like,
my god.
whoa, and
And a
six to
bleak
be
ending, a
it's
bleak
very
twist,
bleak. Yeah.
right?
And they
Oh
I
my
guess they're
god.
both really bleak twists, right?
Mhm.
He's not getting out of
True.
there. Poor Adam.
Yeah.
So that's a wrap.
Oh
And
my
we all
god,
know what
yeah.
if you've seen seven, we all know what happens with Gwyneth Paltrow in her head. So
Oh, yeah.
there you
Oof,
go.
just wow.
I've never looked into like if there was any inspiration like from Seven for this
There
movie.
there has to be. I would be so shocked if they were like, "No, we didn't really think of 7." I'd be like, "No, you're lying." I mean, there's just like the good cop stuff, with
Yeah.
Danny Glover and the Asian cop, which by the way, oh my god, his death, I forgot
Oh,
with the
man.
string and all the gun. It's like multiple
Yeah,
like
and like
rifles.
yeah, blows
Wow.
his head off.
Oh my gosh,
And
and
that shot
Danny
of like
Glover
Danny
gets
Glover
his
when he sees it, then like when he like
yeah,
reaches out and like causes like that like green kind of
right.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you
Oh,
know?
yeah, I was gonna ask you since you forgot he was in it. Did you remember what happened to Danny Glover in the
I
movie?
didn't. I don't guys, I am telling you, I completely forgot Danny Glover was in this movie. I was floored. I was oh my god, it's so funny. Like all the images that like stay in your mind with Saw, Danny Glover is not one of them for me personally. So I was jolted. I was like, "Oh my god."
Yeah.
Yeah.
By
Totally
the way,
forgot.
for Jigsaw's plan to work, there's a lot of stuff that has to fall into place because that
Yes.
the stuff with the two cops that could have ended things right there. They could have. A lot of his stuff is he's smart, he's brilliant, but a lot of it's luck.
Yes. A lot of it
Like,
just happens to be great timing, like,
yeah,
yeah, like he just happened to step right there. Great. Okay. If he
yeah,
didn't,
yeah,
what? Is there a backup trap, which usually, yeah,
yeah.
there is, right?
I
Yeah.
mean, they could have taken him out right there in that scene, and like that throat cut on Danny Glover is so you
Ooh,
feel
it's
that. That's like
gnarly.
legit. Yeah, it's
And I
legit.
again, because I forgot he was in this, I was like, "Oh, is that how he dies?" But then he's
No,
alive. He doesn't die.
they
Like
make him crazy obsessed
I
with like this case,
completely
right?
yeah, I completely cut him out, but,
And
yeah, he's got some interesting stuff to do for sure in this one.
yep. And they kind of use him like the way they use him in a way that almost feels like it's like the audience in a way too, because he
Mm,
thinks like something else is going on because he's following the doctor, right? He thinks this has something to do with the doctor. He keeps saying it. I mean, he thinks like he has this all figured out by surveilling him like for as long
yeah.
as he has because he's gone crazy since his partner died. And also there's all these other things going on in the movie where you're like, I wonder what this is. I still don't know what it is. And then by the time they got rid of Zepp, and I was like, there's more movie. I was like, what is going on? I feel like
Yeah.
you've gotten rid of, and I still, after all those people are gone, Danny Glover, Zepp, whatever, I'm still not thinking about Homie on the floor at all.
Right? I know.
I was
It's
like,
again, it's so impressive because there aren't, like, a ton of characters. Even when, like,
no,
you see, like, what happened to certain victims or whatever, it's not a big cast, but
right,
there's enough crap everyone's gotta deal with that, like, yeah, you're never thinking of that dead body on the floor. It's amazing. And, also, like, what's amazing about this is it introduces us to Jigsaw's voice, like,
right,
"Do you wanna play a game?" Like,
yeah,
which everyone was doing, right? It
yeah,
was sort of like Ghostface, but, like, Ghostface's father now,
yeah,
with,
yeah,
now a new iconic horror voice talking about playing a game, and
right,
then you actually, like, meet the creepy doll and that very
yeah,
scary, voice, Um, and then, oh my god, for me, one of the scariest scenes of this movie, so memorable. I have characters talk about it in my first like professional short film, Sticks, when they're taking pictures in the dark. The picture
yeah,
scene,
oh,
Lee,
yeah,
he like kind of wakes up, comes to in his what do they call that? In his like photo room where it's all
like
red.
dark room, is
Dark room, thank you,
yeah,
yes.
yeah,
And then all the light like, the power's out, the lights are off in his place, and just taking the photos, and it's quiet, and then
and
that
that's the only light you get, like, for a little bit, like,
oh,
the flash, like, yeah,
oh my
it's so
god,
good.
I was tense. I was very tense for that. And then this horrifying,
He's like a
strange,
pig was it pig
random
face thing? What is it?
pig pig mask, like, with long black hair and a red
Yeah,
like, what? What is it? It was oh my god, it made me scream. Now, is
yeah.
that supposed to be like a real pig head or it's just a mask? Do we know?
We don't know, but it looks pretty authentic. So I don't know.
Whatever it was. I mean,
Yeah, it's
not in
pretty good.
real life, but like, did
Yeah,
the character like cut off a pig's head and wear it? I mean, either way,
yeah,
terrifying. And how like when he opens the closet, like something's in there, but
yeah,
still
yeah,
we do like that's what's so brilliant. We don't know what they look like. And to
yeah,
see that, oh my God, and the editing of that coming right towards the camera. Oh my God.
yeah.
Terrifying, terrifying. So this
And
movie,
honestly, it's
oh,
honestly true. It's an example of like a stinger, right? Because it does you get a loud noise when it jumps out at you,
right.
but like I don't mind them if they're done well, and that one is
Yeah.
done pretty
Oh yeah.
well
Well,
because
especially because it's
the
silent.
build up is yeah the build up is essential. Like it's
Right.
not like and it's done in a different way than like most of those scenes would be because the room
Yes.
is like you said like it's dark red basically that you don't really have any
Right.
light other than like the few flashes when like all that's happening and then
Yeah.
to have it jump out when he does jump out it's that's a well timed really well done scare
Definitely. Yeah, that's
and
a great scene. It's really stuck in my mind. Like, I would, take pictures on our digital cameras back then
yeah
and, like, in the dark, like, to freak out my friends because of that movie. So, yeah,
yeah I
definitely.
also like that I mean it's 103 minutes like it's not like it's really long but like
No.
you get to like kind of they're all those characters I mean from who needs to be developed is very well developed like I mean I
Yeah.
like that and I love that you gradually learn more about them as it just goes on they drop a few more details into it and then there's
Right.
this whole thing about like can Adam and Lawrence like trust each other? Are they playing each
Right.
other? There's like
Yeah.
it's like like they're in this situation like maybe we should just a part of you is like oh work together guys, but then there's also like every man for himself. There's that kind of like
Right. And
debate
I
too,
love that quality to
and
it
it
too. It
goes back and
feels
forth to between the
yeah.
two things. Uh,
Absolutely. It feels like a kind of like a great old-fashioned, like, real mystery thriller, like, you're both stuck, but, like, did one of you do this to each other? Like, I love that. It's great,
yeah,
you know?
and I think he like because he finds like the picture of the daughter and the wife in the wall, right? Like Adam does, and it has
Right.
like the X on it, and then he doesn't tell him like right
That's
away.
right. Yes.
And so like it's part of you is like, oh, can like I thought you guys were building trust. Now we're not. I love how they go
Yeah.
back and forth, and then they
Keeps
have
us
to reveal a little
guessing.
bit more to each other. Then like they go from being like completely antagonistic towards each other to like, all
Right.
right, let's work together, and then back to that. Like
Yeah.
it
Which
really
which
is like
all
a
feels
push and
very
pull.
realistic. I mean, luckily, thank
Yeah,
God, and hopefully never, never will I be chained to a dirty floor in some random room, but, like, I feel like you would go through all that with this person.
yeah,
Anger, desperation, like, "Let's work together, let's kill each other," you know? So, it all feels pretty realistic, which is, again, impressive for such a crazy horror movie. Like, I feel like they must have, like, consulted with, like, cops and, like, you know what I mean? It just feels
yeah,
very lived in, like they did,
yeah.
like, some research, you know? It's amazing.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point because sometimes with movies like this, when it details like you know
It can feel a
police
little like
police procedure and all that stuff, it feels like
right.
this feels very movie. It feels like
Yeah,
yeah,
it feels
and
like,
this
okay, you didn't
this
actually, like, know what really happens, but okay, sure,
yeah
you're just, like, making it up and pretending, right? This
yeah
feels, like, very real. It's that grittiness that, like yeah, and also, it's just amazing when, like, there's a good movie that was made for such little money because it just looks and feels good, like,
yeah
this is real life, this is gritty, like, you can tell, like, they didn't have a lot of fancy stuff on set, and, like, this is real life, you know?
yeah
So, it works
it
for
does.
me. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah everything about it just like I said, it feels like a well-oiled machine from start to finish. Like
Mhm.
it really doesn't like no filler at all. Like I feel like every moment
Mm-mm.
means something.
And the
I do feel
pacing is good.
I do feel a little bad for Adam because I guess like it feels like out of all the things that people do in the movie, I mean, he's basically he could be like you consider him like a PI. He's just doing stuff like I know he's like exposing people's like
Right.
secret moments or whatever. But of
Right.
all the things that like people are doing in the movie that he's punching people for,
Yeah.
like it doesn't seem as bad compared to like
Right. Yeah.
compared to like everyone else. It's just
I
like
know.
oh, he's doing a job. It's not like a good one, but like it's not
Right.
like
But it's
we want
not
to
like
tell you
he's
about
like,
you're exposing in his own ways. He like, is exposing people's sins and whatever. Like
true.
so
Yeah, and I
that was
totally
like
forgot he has photos of
yeah
Lawrence and stuff. Yeah, like,
yeah
that's also just, like, such a great, like, classic, like, layered mystery, you know? It's really
yeah.
good.
And
Yeah.
that's the cool thing too, because you realize like, oh, he already knows who. I mean, he's been like following. He already knows who he
Mm.
is. Like,
Yeah.
and but I love that they don't play all their cards right away. That's another good thing about the movie
Yes.
too, where it's just like, oh, okay, we're just gradually learning like what,
Yep.
like you said, what this puzzle is, like as they're putting
Yeah.
it together.
Absolutely.
And I don't know, I will say, I not even just like the whole stuff with like John Kramer being on the floor, like I just never predicted anywhere it was going the first time I saw it. Like I never was like,
Absolutely.
oh, I think it's this, I think it's that. I was just like,
Had
I
no
don't know.
idea.
I was
Yep.
like, I really don't know what's happening
I'm
or
going
going on.
along for the ride. Yeah, like I remember in some of the commercials and trailers seeing the doll, the
Yeah,
jigsaw. I thought it was almost like, "Oh, is this like a killer doll movie?" Like, I'm still
yeah,
going, I'll see it, but like, what? Like, it has all these pieces that is actually amazing for like trailers because you can mislead people. You can show
yeah.
these different visuals and because so it all pieces together perfectly, but yeah, there's a lot going on to really kind of mislead you, which is great for any horror fan to like really go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, and yeah, I agree. And like you said, it doesn't play its hand too early. And I'm glad the marketing didn't do that either, because they could have easily built it around, like they could have exposed
Yes.
things a bit more, and they didn't.
Yes.
I like, from what I remember from the trailers and stuff, there was no hints of that. I mean, like you said,
Thank God.
they showed like the doll puppet thing more than they showed anything else.
Right.
So I actually don't think we fully knew what we were going to see when we went to go
Yeah.
see it.
Right.
We're just hoping for the best, I guess. And
I just remember like the doll, Amanda in that bear trap,
yeah,
and yeah, and then two guys chained up and like probably saying like, "How did we get here? Or who are you?" And it's like, "Oh, okay, I'm sold." Like,
yeah.
and that's all we needed to know, and then the rest just totally unfolds. It's amazing. I don't even really remember seeing Danny Glover much in the like
Trailers
marketing,
either. I don't remember that
right?
either.
Which is surprising since he was such a big deal. So yeah, they were very smart in holding certain things
They
back.
love casting him as cops, man. Lethal Weapon,
He's
Predator
just got
2.
such a yeah, like, he's got such a good cop voice and vibe, like, I get it, I see it, or
Yeah,
maybe I just say that because, like, we're just so used to seeing him as a cop, but it totally
yeah,
works? Funny or serious, it totally works,
yeah.
right?
Um, I did not know this about Carrie Ellis, that in August 2005 he filed a lawsuit against his management firm and producers of Saw, Evolution Entertainment, alleging breach of contract and unjust enrichment. He said that he was promised that he would receive a minimum of 1% of the producer's net profits from the film, and did not. He claimed he was only
Ooh.
received $53,275 and a salary of $2.5 million. The case was later settled out of court, and of course he reprised the role in Saw. The
Okay,
final
yeah,
yeah.
interesting. So that was over him being like, getting money from being a producer.
Oh, so yeah, I guess so.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Which
Well,
I'm sure at that time, they probably gave him like a good fee for any of us, but like a low fee for him. So he probably took on like a producer credit. Yeah. So that makes sense. Wow. Well, I'm
yeah,
glad they figured it out because that would be a bummer if there was like
yeah.
a, a dark cloud over business stuff?
Yep. And
Wow.
Shawnee Smith says she's not a fan of horror movies, and she initially refused the role of Amanda Young, but she described the script as horrific when she first read it. And then she said,
Yeah.
however, after watching the short film, she agreed to the role, which was the part that Lionel portrayed in the short when they did it.
Yeah.
And he suggested Smith when his casting director asked who he wanted to play Amanda, as he had a crush on Smith since his teenage years, and was surprised when his casting director secured her on the role.
That's
So I
amazing.
thought,
I
you
do
know,
remember hearing that he had a crush on her. That's so funny. I love that. Yeah, because
and with,
I forgot that like she's also got some horror cred with the Blob remake from the
yeah,
80s.
yeah.
I love that remake. So yeah, she was a thing for sure.
I always find it funny when actresses and actors who do these movies say they're not a fan of horror
I
movies.
know.
Jamie Lee Curtis is that too.
Yep, and
You know,
even Nev Campbell, like
yeah,
a few of
no,
them are like, yeah, I
they
don't
don't like
watch it. I
them,
don't.
and like
Yeah,
most of your bread and butter is coming from it, and they're like,
I
they're
know.
not really my thing, and
And it's so
yeah,
funny because it's like, so then like, but you seem to really enjoy the work involved in them, but you don't enjoy watching them. It's very interesting to me because it's like, how can you do something that you don't like watching? You know?
yeah.
It's funny.
Uh,
But a lot of them
Danny
say that.
Glover, when he got cast, said this is funny because he's played so many cops, but he said in the interview something about that detective character at that particular point attracted me to it. I was like so
Okay.
anytime you play the cop,
Yep. That's
Jesus.
so funny.
And Tobin Bell said he took the role because he wanted a chance to work with Danny Glover, and
Mm,
he liked the idea of it filming in the location that they filmed it in, with just two guys locked in a room.
right.
Uh, And then Juan said they primarily cast Bell because of his voice. Someone named Mike Butters was originally offered the role of Jigsaw, but declined as he felt that the role did not have enough exciting scenes. Yep, these are just mostly laying on the floor. Butters is a friend of one of the producers whom he used to play hockey with. Ended up cast as Paul, the Jigsaw victim who perishes in the razor wire maze trap. So he ended up.
Oh, that guy. Interesting. Oh, yeah, that's
So,
gnarly too.
so he ended up being in it.
Yeah,
Good for him.
that's cool. Yeah, he gets his residuals.
Yeah,
I hope, probably.
And Lionsgate picked up Saw at the 2004 Sundance Film Festival. I did not realize that.
I know, isn't that amazing? This was a
Yeah.
Sundance movie. I forgot. Yeah.
They said they played to a packed theater for 3 midnight showings to have a positive reaction. It was the closing film at the Toronto International Film Festival in September of 2004. They were going to release it direct to video at first, but due to the positive reaction at Sundance, they chose to release it theatrically before Halloween.
Oh, good.
I can't believe they were going to release it. Lionsgate, well, that was back then. They were making better decisions. They have not been making good decisions lately.
Right. Yeah. I could see them maybe trying to do video, but I'm so glad they did theatrical. I mean, now it would be such a hit. I mean, it would be a hit in theaters, but it would be such a hit on streaming. But yeah, isn't it so amazing also how 20 years ago you could have a crazy movie like this with big reveals, big twists at Sundance and not see it until like 10 months later ish.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't have it spoiled. Nowadays, that would never happen. Someone from the festival would post about it. I mean, I'm shocked I haven't really gotten many spoilers for like The Substance. You know what I mean? Like it's just people would just spill the beans on this for sure. Like you can't really wait that long to release something like this, you know?
And talking about the power of the movie made 55.1 million in the States and then a total of 103 million worldwide. It also, what made them gave him incentive to want to move ahead with the sequel was that it sold more than $70 million worth of video and DVDs. That also shows you how powerful physical media is.
Wow.
Or was.
Yep.
That your movies could be making that much money.
Yeah, that's impressive. I was one of them.
I missed that though. I wish I wish it was still as viable.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, this movie got a C+ cinema score from opening day audiences. I guess that's horror. Yeah.
What the hell? I do not understand these like hard, like to please fans. I gave it an A+++. There's a picture. It's so funny because do you remember like back in the day, like live journal, dead journals, like I had a dead journal and I remember taking a selfie of me and my friends in the parking lot of the Lowe's movie theater where we saw this because we were so freaked out and we just took like a horrified, I'll have to like find it, like a horrified, like, and we loved it. I mean, our hearts were racing. Like we were shouting about this in the parking lot. So anyone that gave it a C, I don't get it. I truly don't get it.
Have you actually, ever been in a position to be pulled for cinema score? I don't know where this happens or how it gets done.
It's like who does this? What theater is this? Only in like one screening room in like LA? Where do you do it?
Yeah.
I have no idea. Yeah.
I've never had it done. I only found out about it when I started to have to cover box office for the website, and I was like, all right, but where do they? I was like, I've never been pulled for this at all. I don't know. It has to be one. I would assume one of the popular theaters in either LA or New York. I don't know.
New York, I guess, but it's like. And I've worked a ton of screenings because I don't really anymore since I moved to Maine. But for years, I worked at this company, Allied Integrated Marketing, and I would often write reports for studios. And sometimes I would ask people like, "What'd you think?" Like, or I'd just listen to conversations. So you would think that like since I was at the movie theater all the time working screenings, I would see someone from Cinema Score, but never. No. So I don't know. Great question. Yeah.
Yep. Like we said, the critics were mixed. Variety said it was a crude concoction sewn together from the several parts of prior horror serial killer films. They called the screenplay convoluted, criticizing the use of flashbacks within flashbacks and red herrings. And they described the film as being too hyperbolic to be genuinely disturbing. San Francisco Chronicle gave the film a positive review, saying it combined B-movie acting with a twisted mindset and visual tricks designed to camouflage cheap effects, and that it was terrifying at some moments and insinuatingly creepy at many others. And they called the killing scenes amazingly evocative for such a low-budget movie. Empire compared it favorably to the films of David Fincher. That's a good compliment. Entertainment Weekly gave it a B-, said it was derivative and messy and too nonsensical for its own good, but also said that it was entertaining in spots. Said that some of the film suffered from overacting as well.
Okay.
Really Disgusting ranked the film 10th in its list of the top 20 horror films of the decade, with the
Mm,
article calling Saw perhaps the most influential horror film of the decade. The Daily
mhm.
Telegraph listed the film number 14 on their top 100 list that defined the 2000s,
Wow.
and the film was nominated for Best Horror Film at the 31st Saturn Awards.
Mhm.
I think it is a horror classic. I mean,
Oh,
you
yeah.
said earlier that when you saw it, you could tell that it was. And sometimes it's not always the case where you see one, they're like, oh, this is going to be one we talk about for a really long time. But
Right.
this one was. You could tell, and like I said, I had saw it twice just because I kept comparing it to Seven and all those other things, and I thought
Right.
it was so good.
And
But
also,
once
it's
it all,
so fun to rewatch it once you know things. Like, it's like, "Okay,
yeah.
now are there clues?" You know? Yeah, absolutely.
Now, once it came together with that, ending and everything, I was like, oh, like this is
Oh,
top
yeah.
notch work here.
I
I mean,
have
the
a
screenplay is so good.
I have a really cool poster down here, that's a little too far away. It's like a scratch off of 100 horror movie posters,
Mhm.
and, I'm trying to see, I'm sure Saw is on it. I can't tell, but, man, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's up there for sure. In my opinion, absolutely. It's like one of the I think I do see it. It's one of,
Yeah,
like, the and like that one critic said that you just read, like, it absolutely was one of the most influential horror films
yeah,
of not only the decade, of, like, I think of ever now, you know?
yeah,
It's, like, so impressive what they did, for
yeah.
sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
and I did find when asked if 1995's Seven was an inspiration, Wynell
Mm,
said, "For me as a writer, definitely. I mean, Seven is
mm,
just a very well constructed film, and if you're writing a thriller, it can't hurt to study it. In terms of the story, though, James and I never really felt Seven was that close to our film. I guess if you
mm.
stand back and you have two detectives chasing a psychopath who
Yeah,
uses vile methods to teach people lessons, and those points echo Seven. What we always
yeah,
liked about Saw, though, was that the story is told from the point of view of the two of the psychopath's victims instead of the police chasing after him, as you
yep.
often see. So,
Mhm,
well,
mhm,
at least they admitted
totally.
that story by they are inspired
Yeah,
by it, but their
yeah.
film took a turn and did something different.
They're the 2 of them are absolutely a perfect double feature. Like, there is absolutely 7 DNA in this, and that's okay, but yeah, it's different enough for sure. Like,
Yeah,
oh yeah, there's all sorts of other crazy things they do, so
yeah,
that's alright. And sometimes we don't know if, like, a movie really inspired us, because like, it just gets into, like, your subconscious, and, like, you're
yeah,
so
yeah,
moved by it that, like, you don't even realize that it might be, such an
yeah,
inspiration. That's fine, you know?
yeah. Well, given the great reception that Saw 10 got, like critically and financially,
Mhm.
and we're getting another one next year. Are you like, I'm done with this? Are you happy they're still making them? Like, where are you kind of
That's a
at?
great question. I kind of don't think either way of it. Like, I remember kind of being surprised where I'm like, "Oh, all right, they're, like, gonna stop them?" You know?
Yeah,
Like, and they took, like, a break there. I think keep doing them. I don't know if I think I'm, like, a casual watcher now where, like,
yeah,
I'll pop in and out if, like, the reviews are pretty good. Um Yeah, it's not a franchise like I said, like, it's not one I need to, like, study or, like, really, like,
like read.
just jump in like others that I love. So, yeah, I think it's cool, and I'm happy to support it when it's good. I feel like
Yeah,
there's no need to just crank out the sequels like they were for a while if it's really not worth it, you know?
yeah, I agree with that. And
Yeah.
I did also want to ask you too. Tobin Bell's Jigsaw, is he up there with kind of the other like big horror movie villains for you, or like
I think
signature horror
so.
movie?
I
Okay,
think so for sure. It's funny because like he as his own like image is kind of not as famous as the like Jigsaw like doll, like I
oh
feel
yeah,
like,
right.
like that's kind of but oh yeah, I think so. From the voice to him to his gadgets and everything. Yeah, absolutely. We
Yeah,
we for sure he's in there. Like sometimes Pennywise is part of the lineup and Pennywise is great, but I'm like, Pennywise isn't in that many movies though. Like
yeah,
when you think of like the real horror franchises, like, oh yeah, I would say Jigsaw's right up there with Ghostface, Michael, Freddy,
yeah.
who else? Jason, all of them,
Jason. Yep.
Mhm.
And he has more depth too. I mean, as well as
Yes,
a character, there's
he's
more. There's
got
more going on
really
there.
yeah, there's a lot going on for sure.
The fact that they've taken the time to develop him as much as they have, even in like the lesser ones, I was like, well, he was always like the kind of like weird to say the emotional through line, but he kind of is. Like
Mhm,
like you
mhm.
go back and forth. Like I don't want to support his methods, but like is that in that last one when he like the reasons why he was going after them because like
Oh, yeah.
they promised him with his new procedure that they could basically cure his
Yes.
and they were basically scamming him and took his
Oh my god, that was
so like
brutal. Yeah.
so I thought that was a good sympathetic way to bring that character back and also be like as a viewer be like all right I get it like do whatever you need to
Mhm.
do to him so like
Oh, yeah.
yeah
That
so
was a
like
shock. Oh, yeah.
yeah so I think he has a lot more emotional character than like most horror movie villains and I think
Definitely.
that makes him stand out
Mhm.
and cool. I mean, good for Tobin Bell, who's like, deep in his like 70s. I don't know. I mean, he's old.
He's old, yeah, he was n not young when he did this, so yeah, that's
yeah,
amazing, like, that I love success stories like that, where it's like, "Who are you? Where you been?" And, "Whoa, like, now
and
you are, like, movie royalty." Like, you
yeah,
are like, your face is part of pop culture, you know?
yeah.
It's
And I
amazing.
don't know if I don't know what kind of deal he has across all these movies. Like, if how much I mean, he's been
Hmm.
paid or taken care of because there's a lot of
I
like
hope so, I'm sure
merchandising,
he has,
a lot of
right?
merchandising stuff that uses his likeness and all that stuff. So I hope they are. I mean, Lionsgate, they're the ones that are I think they deal with the Blair Witch Project property now, and like
Ye
they
yeah.
they were and now they are the ones being called out by those actors. Like, hey,
Mhm.
please pay us what we're worth back then, and like you keep you want to keep using our image and blah blah blah. So I hope he's not in that. It doesn't seem like he's in that situation because he seems like he's
No.
happy to be
Yeah.
there and do it. But I hope he's
I'm
well taken
sure.
care of because
Yeah.
he deserves it. And I think James Wan and Lee Winnell also say that like he has become that franchise now, and not in a
Right.
negative way where like this is not ours anymore. Like
Oh,
it's
yeah.
what like once they took a step away and they weren't really directing them or writing them anymore.
Mhm.
Like he became the kind of like you know the one positive thing that they could look to in those
Yeah.
movies,
Oh,
which
yeah,
I
I
think is
can't
a really good
imagine
thing. Yeah,
I mean, I can imagine they will eventually do them without him, but his voice, it's like Ghostface, like, at
yeah,
some point, these actors sadly will pass away, but the movies will probably somehow continue, maybe, but it's like, you gotta hold on to that voice, like,
yeah.
pay them top
Record
dollar
the
to
voice.
just record every word in the dictionary,
Yeah,
like,
so
right?
splice it all together in case you can't use
Yeah.
them anymore.
Mhm.
Um, all right. So the moment of scoring the movie. What you got?
I would say for this, I would I don't think I'm, crazy here. I would give it a 4.5 out of 5.
All right.
Um, because it is so influential. It is such a shock. We're talking about it and loving it. And yes, the sequels, some of them are definitely inferior. I would say most, even the like good ones I've seen, most were not as great as this one. And that's okay,
Right. Right.
whatever, right? But I mean, it started a whole like we said, it started a whole subgenre, or maybe it didn't start, but it really made it hugely popular and mainstream.
Yeah.
And I mean, just the workmanship. I mean, it's a really well-made film, really well written. Only reason I'm not giving it a 5 out of 5 is this was my first rewatch in years. So for whatever reason, maybe because of the sequels, like we were saying, I don't feel drawn to rewatch it all that often like I have with other horror classics.
Right.
So, maybe it's the way it looks. It is very, like, dark and, like, green and, you know, maybe that's not an aesthetic I'm, like, wanting to watch every year, you know? So,
Yeah.
just for that, I would just knock it down to 4.5, but really solid. Great, scary, scary movie. Truly.
Yep.
What about
I
you?
give it 4.5 as well. So we're on the
Okay.
same page there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it holds up really well. I think it is a horror classic at this point. Yeah, for those who are interested, they are re-releasing it, I think next week for its 20th
Oh,
anniversary.
fun.
So
Nice.
at a few I think it's through Fandango or something that's
That would be
doing it.
fun to see on the big screen again, actually.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
that experience was pretty fun on opening night.
Mhm.
And to see that again with like a like-minded audience who's probably seen the movie a lot, like that would
Right.
be a lot of fun. I also love success stories like this. I love people who like they did a little short film and then like they got the money they
Mhm.
needed to like make this and like I always go back to like the original Halloween about like just a bunch of group of friends like making a movie together for like no money
Mhm.
and then like
Mhm.
and then it becomes this big thing and
Yeah.
and now like they are both kind of industry titans at this point. I mean James
Oh,
Wan
yeah.
like
James Wan, I mean, it's amazing how, like, in 20 years, he has become a new master of horror, you know?
yeah
Not every movie he's done is, like, stellar, but a lot of them, whoa, so many franchises, you know? And then, yeah, with Lee, I mean, I agree. The 2 of them in 2 decades became like go-to guys for this genre.
Yeah. And also good for James Wan too, who got to actually parlay this out of genre filmmaking. Got
Right.
to do he got to do Furious 7.
Yeah.
Whether or not you liked Aquaman in the sequel,
Right.
that's another story. But that
But
first Aquaman movie made $1 billion. So
right. He made
for him.
successful big action movies, nothing to do at all with this genre. You're right. Absolutely.
Yeah. And like you said, it really does sound so remarkable when you break it down to just 20 years. 20 years feels like a long time. Like thinking about I saw this 20 years ago for the first time. But
Right.
for what he's done with his career doesn't feel that long. It feels like, that's a lot that he accomplished in what feels like a relatively short amount of time. And
Right.
got to have more than one big horror franchise. He got to have
I
this.
know.
He has Insidious, he has The Conjuring, and that
Mhm.
universe expanded into a bunch of other stuff too. The
Yes.
Insidious universe is going to expand with spin-offs and stuff as well. It's getting another
Right.
sequel. Even if he
Yep.
doesn't direct them anymore, he gets the producing credit, so he still gets
Oh
paid.
yeah. I'm
So
sure
good for
I
him.
wouldn't I would hope and I believe that he's still, even if he's not directing or writing or anything, just producing, I'm sure he's in some meetings. He's approving at least the general story of things, you know. He's not completely just name only. He's still involved, I'm sure, you know.
Right. And we
But
need people like him and Lee Whannell and the Mike Flanagans and
yeah,
we all these
I
people voices
know.
in horror who are still really significant and good. And
Yes.
I just love their humble beginnings though.
Right. Yeah. Oh
they couldn't
yeah.
even sell this movie in Australia where they're from. They had to,
Mhm.
it all worked out. They had to come to LA and it worked out for them. But I love the whole struggling artist story that turns into a success story like
Yeah,
this.
where it was so big, it was bigger than they could have even dreamed. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
amazing. It's really cool.
And I'm
It's definitely
sure
inspiring.
changed their lives overnight.
Oh
That
yeah.
had to the way they moved so quickly after that on making more of those movies and then getting involved oh well, I have other
Mhm.
horror scripts I want to do. And once you have one hit like that, every studio is probably oh, give me one of your movies.
Yes. Uh-huh.
So
And then it's fun
good
to
on them.
see Lee pop up in Insidious. And I think
Yeah,
isn't he in The Conjuring, the first one? I think he is.
I
Or am I
think he
wrong?
is. I can't remember
It's
actually. I know
been
he's in
so
the
long
Insidious
now.
movie
Yes, he's in the Insidious movies
playing
at
a
least
fun,
as
different character, which is great.
right.
That,
Yeah.
yeah,
So it's fun to still, see them work
yeah.
together, you know. Yeah. Really great duo.
Well, Mark, thank you for joining me for the second episode of Back to the Blockbuster, where we
Yes.
talked 20 years of Saw.
Thank
You're a
you.
trooper going through 2 episodes with me. I know
I
it's later
know.
over
I'm
there,
tired
so
now. I hope I don't have
I appreciate.
nightmares
Oh,
after all
Jesus!
these scary
Well,
movies.
you're gonna have a crossover movie in your head. It's gonna be House on Haunted Hill
Yes.
and Saw, and that's
Ooh.
that's a lot.
Ooh, that is a lot. That's really complicated, but I'm
Yeah,
into it.
yeah,
Okay.
it might work. You might come
Interesting.
up with something. You might have
You
your
know,
next
one
short
franchise
film.
I know, right? Now that'll be my inspiration. One franchise that I would like to see, but I don't think we'll ever see is Malignant 2. I don't know what that would be.
Yeah, everyone
I
didn't
did
like it
enjoy that,
we did. I loved it, and I know I have
right?
friends that viscerally hate it.
I know.
Like,
It's so opposite. It is so
yeah,
polar opposite.
yeah,
But that could be fun if that turned into, but I don't it was tough because it was direct to streaming, and I feel like most movies that are direct to streaming nowadays, you kind of can't tell if it was successful enough for a sequel. It's kind of
yeah,
weird, you know? So
yeah,
but yeah, that's another great one too. Yeah, it's really cool to just it's thank you, Gaius, for this
yeah,
great opportunity to chat about these great horror movies of our past, and
yeah.
they absolutely hold up,
Yep,
right?
they really do. Whether it's 25 or 20 years later, they are both very solid
It's like
examples
no
of
time has passed. Oh my god, I
uh,
can't believe all those years have passed. I remember
yeah,
being in the parking lot or sitting in the theater, seeing this stuff. It's amazing. So,
yep.
very fun to talk about.
And as always, you can find Mark on the Release Date Rewind podcast. Please check it out
Yeah.
wherever you get your podcast. It's a fun show. There's a reason why he's on our episodes that are tied to movie anniversaries, because his show is tied to movie anniversary. So he's always on
Absolutely.
brand. So that's not
Yeah.
you have to be on brand if you're.
I know,
you
yeah. I it's like thanks for inviting me to talk about that random movie, but it's gotta have some sort of special anniversary for
Yeah,
sure.
no,
So,
it has to make sense. It has to make sense for you. What
right.
I've learned too, some of the guests who've been on Tales of Horror, I will change how the episode flows based on what their show is.
Yeah.
I have
That's
one
nice.
it'll be out in a week or two. They basically add a more comedic spin to what they talk about. And we did Stir of Echoes, did not talk about Stir of
Ooh.
Echoes at all seriously. Only
Yeah.
at some point we did, but their show is they kind of find the funny in all of that stuff. And that was
That's
cool too.
interesting.
I was like, I'll keep up with like whatever you guys want to.
I really want to
Like,
rewatch that. It's been years
yeah,
for me, but
it
that
holds up pretty well too.
that gets dark for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so
So yeah,
funny.
so I'm glad
And
that
yeah, and
like
it
you keep on brand like for
and this
yourself and
worked
like
this worked out so well because I obviously love these two movies, this one and House on Haunted Hill from '99, but I knew I wouldn't be able to fit it into my schedule, so they were
yeah.
never like on my list. So yeah, happy to talk about them here. So thanks
Yeah,
for this.
and I gotta get the count again, but you might be close to the number of episodes you did. Like you were on a lot last year. I think you were on like 6 or 7 times.
Wow.
And,
Yeah, you've had
like
me back a lot. I'm so thankful. It's fun. I love it. I mean, who knows? We're already in like end of October, so I don't know if you'll have me back again this year. We'll see what's coming up anniversary wise. I gotta look at my
yeah,
list. But yeah, you gotta come back on my show. It's already been almost a year. So and I finally
yeah,
need to get Jackson on if he ever
yeah,
shows his
yeah.
face again. He's
Yeah,
haunting
he
us.
will. He will. Yeah, I'll be seeing his face very soon. So
Yes.
yeah, I was like, they're gonna think that you're really not on the show anymore, Jackson. I was like, that's why we're doing these episodes to prove it that you're still there.
Yeah. That's so
Um,
funny.
but
Thank
yeah,
you.
thank you for no problem. Thank you for joining me. And as always, you can hear Back to the Blockbuster wherever you get your podcasts, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Good Pods. Those are great, but you should also check it out on the Playlist Studio app. They have their own app to listen to our show and their other great shows as well. And you can get it in the iOS store or the Google Play Store. You can also subscribe to our YouTube page if you want to see our handsome mugs as well. A lot more coming at you, and we can't wait to deliver it for you. Again, Mark, I'll see you before like the year closes out. There'll be something.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah,
there's-
well, let's keep each other posted. There'll be something for sure.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
happy Halloween, everyone.
Halloween. Peace.